If you're thinking about buying the PS5 Pro, there are 3 questions you need to ask yourself before you make that decision. Hello everyone, Aaron here from Push Square, and I have been playing the PS5 Pro over the last weekend. I'm working on my review, which may already be live by the time you watch this video, but during my time testing out all the different Pro enhanced games, I came to the conclusion that there are 3 big questions that you need to ask yourself before you bite the bullet and buy this console, because it's an expensive console. So to simplify things, I've narrowed it down to 3 questions, so let's just jump right into it. Question number 1, and this is going to sound really stupid, but are you the kind of person that notices frame rate bumps and resolution bumps? I know I said it was going to be a little bit stupid, but I know plenty of people out there that are big gamers but don't care about frame rate, that don't care about high resolution. So you should be asking yourself, do you notice the difference between 1080p and 1440p, or 1440p and 4K? Can you tell the difference between 30 and 60 frames per second, 60 and 120 frames per second? These are the sort of things that you need to think about, because primarily this is what you're getting out of the PS5 Pro. Now there are some instances with ray tracing which I do think makes a big difference, but ray tracing isn't really a guaranteed factor of an enhanced game. There are plenty that I've played already that don't have full-on proper ray tracing just in the Pro enhanced versions. So there's your question number 1. Will the differences to resolution and frame rate actually make a difference to you? Question number 2. What kind of display are you using? Regardless of whether you're a monitor person or a TV person, you have to look at a couple of technical specifications for your television to really determine what you are getting out of the Pro. Really, I think you should be looking at 4K on a television as your minimum, maybe 1440p on a monitor, but one of the big things you should be checking is the refresh rate. A lot of standard 4K TVs max out at 60Hz, which is of course 60 frames per second. That means you're not really going to be getting anything out of the Pro enhanced versions. Resident Evil 4 and Village, for example, their enhanced versions are pretty much just bumping the frame rate from 60 plus all the way up to 120. If you have a television that has 120Hz display and VRR support, which is variable refresh rate, then you're going to get a little bit more out of some of the enhanced games. But if that's not something that you have with your television, then there's some enhanced games that you're really not going to see any upgrades from, at least nothing too substantial. In addition to this, let's call this question 2.5. How are you watching the screen in front of you? Are you sitting just a few foot away from your screen like I am, or are you lying back on the couch about 6 to 10 foot away from your screen? I think these can impact how much you're seeing of the upgrades, because for a lot of games this isn't like a night and day, whoa, that's completely different from this one. It's not a generational upgrade, but it's a nice little uptick here or there. I think frame rate, for me personally, I'm always going to see that regardless of the distance, but sometimes these tiny little upgrades to resolution thanks to the new PSSR, you're not really going to see those from a proper distance away. So how are you playing these games? Where are you sitting when you play them? Question number 3, and this one really should be like the top of your list here. What games are you planning to play on the Pro? It might seem like a really simple question, but it's integral to what you're actually getting out of the upgrade that is welcomed by the Pro. Now, of course, we've spoken about the televisions with variable refresh rate and high frame rates, but depending on the game, you're getting different upgrades. Some have actual dedicated Pro enhanced versions, some don't have any at all, but you're maybe still getting a little bump to frame rate or a little bit of a sharpening on your resolution, especially with the PS4 Game Boost. Now, if you're something like me, I think that's going to be a tough question to answer, because you try to keep up with the latest games, you play quite a wide variety of different games. I know a lot of you are like that. I've seen your comments at the weekends with our what are you playing posts, but sometimes I know plenty of people, and I'm sure you do, that just play a handful of games, maybe 2 or 3 games. What are those games? What is your PS5 Pro primarily going to be for? Is it a Call of Duty machine, in which case there is a Pro enhanced version? Then what upgrades is the Pro Enhanced version bringing? You should be checking to see which games are being benefited from the Pro and exactly how they're being benefited, and then asking yourself those previous two questions. Is my television the kind of television that's going to really allow me to see these differences? Am I the sort of person that's going to be able to see these differences? Putting all of these questions together, and I think you give yourself a pretty good idea as to whether the Pro is worth the upgrade for you. Now, I know this is not a be-all, end-all. Ask these 3 questions and that fits everyone. There's a lot of different elements that come into this, like the price itself. That's a big thing right there. But just in general terms, I wanted to narrow it down to these 3 really important points, because I think a lot of people just see Pro and they think it's better, it's the best, I want that version. So you do have to think a little bit about that, and I'm not saying that people don't think about spending £700. I would think an awful lot about spending that amount of money. Hopefully this helped you out in some regard, and again, make sure you're keeping an eye out on the channel for that full review when that drops, if it's not dropped already, that is. But let me know what you think. Are there any other questions that you really should be asking before you make that upgrade to the Pro that really determine whether it's worth it for you or not? Let me know down in the comments below, and as always, thank you for watching, and until next time, I've been Aaron, and this has been Push Square.